Germany must build up its military strength, or the world at large will suffer. That's the stark reality outlined by Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius in November 2023. Decades of military neglect have left Germany vulnerable, relying on others for defense. Now, with Russia's aggression in Ukraine, the urgency is clear. Germany is pouring resources into transforming from a military lightweight to a superpower. Why is this so important? A stronger German military is crucial for NATO and global stability. As Europe's largest economy, Germany's military strength means a more formidable alliance against threats from Russia and beyond. In this video, we dive into the radical steps Germany will take to achieve this transformation. What challenges lie ahead? How will Germany's ambitious military strategy impact US and global security? All of those questions will be posed in this video, that will start by answering another key question. What state is the German army in right now? On paper, Germany's military doesn't seem too bad. For instance, Global Firepower's ratings of the 145 strongest military nations place it at 19th on the list. That means it's a top 20 military force that should be among the strongest that Europe has to offer. Digging deeper into the numbers would seem to affirm this claim. Germany has 215,600 military personnel, of which 181,600 are part of its active military. The rest are reservists upon whom Berlin could call if required. The country also has around 840,000 citizens reaching military age annually, the 25th highest number of the 145 countries that GFP ranks. Its air force also seems solid on paper. GFP says Germany has 618 aircraft, with 494 being in a combat-ready state. Of those, 133 are fighter jets, with a further 76 being attack-type craft. Germany also has a solid stock of helicopters. Its collection of 318 standard helicopters and 55 attack helicopters place it 12th in the world in that arena. The country's navy is not so impressive. Despite having ports that open out both into the Baltic and North Sea, Germany only has the 45th strongest navy in the world. It has no aircraft or helicopter carriers, limiting its use of aerial forces. However, it has 12 frigates, 5 corvettes, and 6 submarines. Though not especially impressive numbers, they do mean that Germany has at least enough vessels to defend itself from attack. However, it doesn't have enough to conduct sustained attacks against other countries. Finally, there's Germany's ground equipment. It gets off to a good start with its stock of 79,317 vehicles, placing it 6th in GFP's rankings. But it only gets worse from there. Germany has a paltry 295 tanks, only 134 self-propelled artillery units, and a meager 33 rocket artillery units. A concerted ground campaign against a stronger nation, such as Russia, would be out of the question. So perhaps the best word to describe Germany's military is middling. And it gets worse for Berlin when you compare its military to the other major players in Europe. The threat it wants to counter, Russia, beats Germany in every department. It ranks second on GFP's Power Index list, with far more soldiers, planes, ships, and ground equipment than Germany can muster. In a one-on-one war, Germany would be almost guaranteed to come out on the losing end, with the added threat of Russian nuclear weapons being the icing on Moscow's military cake. Of course, Germany isn't expected to fight Russia alone. As a NATO member, it will be able to rely on the collective defense aspects of that alliance to receive support in such a war. But that switches our focus to Germany's allies, and it's fallen a long way behind them. Both France and the UK, for instance, have nuclear weapons, 290 for France and 225 for the UK. Both are also much stronger conventionally than Germany. Global Firepower says that France only falls behind on natural resources and financials, with its 200,000-strong active military combining with 150,000 paramilitary forces to give it an advantage on the ground. Throw in an air force with over 350 more aircraft, along with a navy that not only includes an aircraft carrier but is twice the size in terms of assets, and France clearly comes out on top. The story doesn't change much when comparing Germany to the UK. Britain's military is stronger in practically every respect. Though it has about the same number of active personnel, 184,860, to Germany's 181,600, it has a staggering 924,000 reserve personnel. That means the UK can call up enough people to make its army about 5 times the size of Germany's. There's little difference in the country's air forces, with the UK having a few extra assets, but the UK's navy supports that air force with a pair of aircraft carriers. Speaking of navy, Britain has 117 assets to Germany's 64. You may wonder why any of this matters. After all, Germany, France, and the UK are military allies by virtue of them all being NATO members. However, the takeaway here is that while France and the UK, along with other European powers like Italy and Poland, have been actively investing in their militaries, Germany is lagging behind. It's focused its efforts on becoming Europe's economic powerhouse, relying on collective defense in the process. On paper, the numbers don't reveal just how deep the cracks in Germany's military run. There have been several reports over the last 10 years going into further detail. For instance, a February 2018 BBC report discussed then recent findings that the German military's problems were dramatically bad. The report noted that none of Germany's 6 submarines were ready for deployment, with the same being true of its transport planes. The report was damning, noting that none of the 14 Airbus A400Ms Germany has in its aerial arsenal are actually capable of flying. The suggestion was clear. Germany may have the equipment, but it hadn't invested time or money into the maintenance that equipment needs to be usable. The problems got worse for Germany. The same report found the condition of many of the country's fighter planes, helicopters, tanks, and ships was dramatically bad, to the point where very few were ready for active combat deployment. Germany was also running low on spare parts for this equipment, making maintenance impossible, and its military lacked leadership to the point where it was advertising for thousands of vacant officer positions. Spending, or lack thereof, was an issue, according to the report. It said Germany spent just $45 billion on its defense in 2017, amounting to around 1.2% of the national gross domestic product, or GDP. That fell well short of the 2% NATO recommends, with then-Chancellor Angela Merkel claiming Germany would work toward getting to the 2% level by 2024. Progress was slow. So slow, in fact, that a 2019 report into the Bundeswehr, which is the name for Germany's army, found that many of the issues discovered in 2018 hadn't been solved. German soldiers operating in Afghanistan were being forced to rely on civilian helicopters to transport them, despite Germany supposedly having a healthy stock of choppers. Body armor was being borrowed rather than supplied by the Bundeswehr, and the heavy equipment issues hadn't been solved. Typically, less than 50% of Germany's planes, tanks, and ships were available for training or operational purposes throughout 2019. Commenting on the report, Hans-Peter Bartels, the German parliament's military commissioner at the time, said, "Spare parts are still missing, maintenance in industry is dragging, and the training programs are suffering." In short, Germany has merely identified the problems it had with its military without taking adequate steps to solve them. It appeared the country was still tied up in bureaucratic red tape, while its military equipment either rotted away or proved unusable for its troops. This is despite Germany having raised its defense budget from $45 billion in 2017 to $49.3 billion in 2018. The 2019 report revealed another major problem for Germany. Recruiting numbers were falling. Despite the government having promised to increase the size of Germany's active military from the current 181,600 to 198,500 by 2025, it was attracting fewer people in 2018 than it had in 2017. Specifically, the number of new recruits declined by 3,000 from the 23,000 seen in 2017. Crises elsewhere included reports of sexual harassment in the military, rising to 288 in 2018 from 235 in 2017. Additionally, the rise of what it called far-right incidents further damaged the military's integrity. Change wasn't coming fast enough. And all of this was before the Ukraine war broke out. That war appears to have further depleted Germany's military, at least according to a January 2023 Spiegel International report. It discusses a December 2022 report submitted to the German parliament by Inspector General Eberhard Zorn, highlighting that for all of Germany's talk about modernizing its military in 2018 and 19, many of the problems it faced then were still present in 2023. Artillery units were so lacking, for instance, that Germany couldn't send any to support the NATO battle groups stationed in Lithuania. That, combined with donations made to Ukraine during the war, further highlighted the Bundeswehr's equipment deficiencies. Commitments to both Ukraine and the NATO Rapid Reaction Force also did a number on Germany's anti-aircraft defenses. The report even noted that the Bundeswehr is still reliant on analog radios at a time when most of its European contemporaries have upgraded to encryptable digital radio signals. Not only does this create compatibility issues with standard NATO equipment, but it exposes Germany's military to security issues that frankly shouldn't exist. And again, issues arose with spare parts and maintenance. Germany's navy was highlighted in this report, as it noted insufficient supplies of replacement and reserve parts. Even the Bundeswehr's medical teams didn't have enough bandages and supplies for operations. The message, as in the 2018 and 19 reports, was simple: Germany isn't prepared for a war. That brings us to another question: why did this happen? After all, the first half of the 20th century saw Germany twice rise as one of Europe's dominant military powers. In World War II alone, it conquered most of Europe, and were it not for Adolf Hitler's tactical mistakes during the midpoint of the global war, it may have maintained its control. However, it's the rise and fall of the Nazis that may go some way to explaining how the German military deteriorated during much of the 21st century. There's a pervading culture of shame around the German military. Though 70% of the country's people believe that Germany has atoned for the Nazis' actions, many are still wary of militarizing again. After all, as the BBC reports, many Germans believe that the unification and militarization of the Prussian state in the 19th century laid the groundwork for Germany's involvement in the two world wars that followed. Perhaps the failure to modernize is caused, at least in some small part, by a sense that Germany shouldn't militarize to such an extent again. However, it's also worth noting that Germany has long relied on its NATO membership to bolster its military. Its justification there is that NATO's collective defense mechanisms, such as Article 5 of the NATO Charter, that says an attack on a NATO member is considered an attack on all, should serve as a deterrent. Germany doesn't need a powerful military, this reasoning says, because it's united with over 30 other military powers. That approach has started to cause issues for Germany. For instance, former US President Donald Trump threatened to withdraw 9,500 of the 25,000 American troops stationed in Germany back in 2020. His thinking? Germany's failure to meet NATO's spending target led to him claiming that Germany was reliant on the US and other NATO allies for its defense. Add the Ukraine war into the mix, and Germany has quickly woken up to the possibility that Russian aggression could extend further into Europe. If it does, Germany in its current state will be able to do very little about it. So far, none of this points to Germany becoming a military superpower once again. If anything, it suggests that Germany is going in the opposite direction. Its military is aging and underpowered, and efforts to change things seem to be getting tied up in red tape that's making progress slow. But things will change for Germany. After all, it's getting ever more serious about its need to make its military fit for war. So what has Germany done in recent years that could set the stage for it to become a major military power again? The answer starts with a move that many saw as a misstep, but has at least cleared the way for change to happen: hiring consultants. In 2018, while reeling from the reports mentioned earlier in the video along with criticism from Donald Trump, Germany's then defense minister, Ursula von der Leyen, announced the country needed to reverse over 2 decades of shrinkage and cuts. Her solution was to hire outside consultants, spending hundreds of millions of dollars in the process to tell her what was wrong with the Bundeswehr. On the face of it, that wasn't a bad idea. Bringing in consultants could provide an important perspective, but that's not what happened. Von der Leyen's use of consultants was soon rocked by a scandal as Germany's parliament grew irritated over how the findings and recommendations did little to correct the military's course. In October 2018, Germany's defense ministry announced the launch of an investigation into its own hiring of outside consultants amidst allegations of misconduct by officials. That announcement came hot on the heels of a September 2018 Federal Audit Office report, which suggested that von der Leyen's hiring approach created irregularities that may have allowed the minister to personally gain from these consultants. Tobias Linde, a Green Party member in Germany's parliament, summed the situation up by claiming, "There are still multiple questions about the extent of the use of external help, about contract award violations, about old boy networks between the ministry and external parties." The suggestion, though subtle, was there. Corruption was clouding the use of consultants. The investigation led to extensive interviews carried out with 40 people involved in the scandal, including von der Leyen. The former defense minister admitted mistakes were made in how the contracts were awarded, though she managed to escape punishment. She has since been rocked with other scandals, such as the Pfizergate issue, surrounding her text messages with Pfizer's head, Albert Bourla, relating to the European Union's vaccine deal during the COVID pandemic. But in terms of Germany's military, her initial efforts to move things forward failed. The idea of using external contractors was fine. How they were awarded contracts wasn't. Still, at least Germany was attempting to take steps in the right direction to solve its military woes during this period. Both 2023 and 2024 have seen it take far more significant steps. As noted in the beginning of the video, November 2023 saw the publication of a 19-page document relating to the Zeitenwende, a policy that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. When presenting that document, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius claimed that the Zeitenwende represents Germany becoming a grown-up country in terms of security policy. In it, he sets a $107.1 billion special fund that Germany will use to purchase more modern weapons. The document also makes the crucial pledge that Germany will commit to spending at least 2% of its GDP on defense, in line with NATO's recommendations, from 2024 onward. The Zeitenwende project is designed to transform Germany into the backbone of Europe's collective defense, ensuring it becomes ready to fight a war within the next few years. It's also intended to overcome what Pistorius calls decades of neglect, allowing Germany to ascend to the role of supporter of the many smaller NATO members that it believes are looking to it to defend them against Russian aggression. We're already seeing evidence that Germany is finally following through. In the first half of 2024 alone, it's committed to several equipment purchases. For instance, Defense News reported in February 2024 that Berlin will spend around $650 million to buy up 49 Skyranger 30 aerial defense systems from Rheinmetall, which is one of the country's top weapons manufacturers. These systems are mounted on the German military's Boxer armored fighting vehicles and contain both Stinger surface-to-air missiles and 30mm cannons. With these systems, Germany's vehicles gain the ability to fight against drones, fixed-wing and rotary aircraft, in addition to bolstering their defenses against cruise missiles. That order includes the creation of a prototype, scheduled for delivery by the end of 2024, followed by a purchase of 18 production vehicles. Assuming those vehicles are up to the appropriate standard, the Bundeswehr will complete the purchase of an additional 30. The order comes on the back of Germany having already paid Rheinmetall $1.3 billion to develop the Skyranger 30 system in the first place. And more orders are flowing into Rheinmetall. In March 2024, Reuters reported that the Bundeswehr had commissioned the arms manufacturer to build 123 infantry heavy weapons carriers in an order believed to be worth $2.94 billion. Delivery of these schwere Waffenträger infantry systems is due to start in 2025. Rheinmetall states that the order incorporates the serving and ongoing maintenance of the carriers, a clear response to the issue so many reports into the German army have raised. The vehicle will provide tactical fire support to German infantry units, replacing the outdated Wiesel tracked vehicles currently used in the process. They slot into what the Bundeswehr is calling the new medium force category of its military, with the carriers also being capable of deployment over long distances. It doesn't stop there. In April 2024, Bloomberg reported that around $7.6 billion of the special fund will also go toward the country's navy and ground forces. Almost half has been earmarked for the purchase of a pair of F-126 frigates, which will bolster the number Germany has available to 6. The rest will go toward the purchase of new armored vehicles, increasing Berlin's already impressive numbers while potentially countering maintenance issues with existing vehicles in the process. Finally, Germany appears to be putting its money where its mouth is. And these initial purchases are likely just the tip of the iceberg. After all, it's notable that Germany has been one of the top donors to Ukraine, despite the terrible state its military is apparently in. According to the country's federal government website, Germany has already donated nearly $30 billion in military equipment and funding to Ukraine, with around $7.5 billion of that money coming in the first half of 2024 alone. These donations include 50 Leopard 1A5 battle tanks, along with spare parts, and 120 Marder infantry fighting vehicles, 6 air defense systems, 2 Iris-T SLS and 4 Iris-T SLMs have also been sent to Ukraine, as have a pair of Patriot launchers and sets of missiles. And that's just scratching the surface in terms of donations. Why does this matter? All of this is equipment that Germany will need to replace in order to build itself into the backbone of Europe's collective defenses. Through these donations, the country has essentially created an equipment vacuum, which will need to be filled with newer equipment. Think of it as a combination of Germany wiping its military slate clean while forcing itself into a period of modernization that will ultimately strengthen the Bundeswehr. It's getting rid of the old and so many of the problems that come with it and replacing it with new. Plus, if its contract with Rheinmetall for the schwere Waffenträger infantry systems is anything to go by, Germany isn't going to fall into the trap of allowing its new weapons to fall into states of disrepair again. The key now is that Germany doesn't rest on its laurels. While the $107.1 billion special fund for 2024 is impressive and has catapulted Germany into being one of the world's top 5 military spenders, it's not going to be enough to transform the entire Bundeswehr. Pistorius made that clear during a May 2024 trip to the United States, in which he noted Germany's new efforts to make both national and collective defense a priority for the first time since World War II. He also pushed for more leeway with military spending, bringing up Germany's long-standing debt brake, which prevents the national deficit from rising to above 0.35% of GDP unless there is an emergency. To Pistorius, the Ukraine war and what it represents for the future of Europe is just such an emergency. Speaking to the German press agency, he says, expenditure for defense and civil protection should not be included in the debt brake restrictions. Pistorius also believes the special fund will run dry by 2028, meaning Germany will have to commit more money and soon to maintain its 2% of GDP target. That could present a problem to Germany's modernization efforts. In 2023, NATO signed off on defense plans covering how it would deal with a Russian attack. Those plans were important because they were the first of their kind since the Cold War ended, and they've shown that NATO, like Germany, may not be ready. Reuters reports that the plans have highlighted troop shortages and issues with weapons and equipment, all of which need to be solved by 2029, which is when Germany believes Russia will be ready to launch an attack on a NATO state. Per NATO's new requirements, the Bundeswehr will need to find the money needed to fund an additional 75,000 troops, bringing its army up to just over 250,000 people. That could be a problem, not only because recruitment is struggling in Germany, but because an extra 75,000 soldiers means 75,000 more people to pay and equip. Glassdoor suggests the average salary for a German infantry soldier is around $40,000. Multiply that by 75,000 and you get $3 billion in salaries alone, a substantial chunk of the special fund. There's also budgetary infighting to consider, especially as Germany is currently ruled by a coalition of the Social Democrats, a left-leaning party, the Ecologist Green Party, and the Liberals, who have a more right-wing slant. Olaf Scholz has already rejected calls from Pistorius to raise defense spending by another $7.1 billion in 2024, meaning that issue will likely be delayed until the German elections in 2025. It appears red tape may be getting in the way of modernization again. So where does all of this leave the Bundeswehr in 2024 and beyond? Positive steps are being taken. The special fund has enabled Germany to start refreshing its equipment stocks, which will go a long way toward fixing the maintenance and combat readiness issues that have plagued the German military for so many years. Yet it doesn't look like there's a full commitment to improve every aspect of the military yet. Quibbles over budgets remain, and red tape needs to be cut if Germany is going to achieve the rapid modernization it needs to truly become the backbone of European defense. If Germany truly believes that Russia will be in a position to attack a NATO state in 2029, it needs to accelerate its plans to ensure the Bundeswehr is ready. Germany has the potential to become a military superpower once again. It just seems the country needs to get out of its own way to make it happen. But what do you think? Is Germany making good progress, or does it need to find a way to cut down on bureaucracy to make a long-lasting change? Will Germany be ready to fight Russia if required by 2029? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching the video.